Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour, sponsored by Lake Monster Brewing, Eastside Jiu-Jitsu, and That's Badass Wood Art. Remember to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel because we have some exciting news today. Right in time for training camp, actually, guys. We've been in conversations with the guys over at Viking Nations, and as of July 24th, we are now the official podcast for Viking Nation. So you can find our stuff there on social media now for their Instagram page, their Twitter page, and as well just keep listening to us here and on the podcasts. It's exciting stuff, guys. I think it's gonna give us a lot of opportunities. And so tonight I know Ryan's been drinking all day, but I poured up a whiskey for old time's sake. It's been a little bit. Myles has got one. Ryan.
So I'm the only one not drinking for the first
time. That's
okay.
I feel like you shouldn't be drinking right now, though. Like this is my first one. We don't need to tell the viewers like how many this would be if you picked one up right now. So don't.
Why don't you just give context though what you did do today, and then
So we had a little fundraiser event, a golf fundraiser event for the local schools golf teams. So I think it's like $30 for a red Solo cup, all you can drink. So as you guys can imagine, I can drink quite a bit in 18 holes of golf. So it was a lot of fun. I probably could go grab one more. I'd be fine, but a lot of fun. Also really excited about the Viking Nations.
Man.
The partnership, they do a lot of great work over there, and it's great to have a nice reputable partner joining us.
Yeah, it was, I know the news broke today about our partnership with them, but Myles and I actually got a really good opportunity last Saturday to hit up Dalvin Cook's youth football camp in Cottage Grove before he dipped out of town to whatever team he's going to sign with. And that was super fun to meet Dalvin, and CJ Ham was there as well. And it was just a good event. So hopefully that's just a sign of things to come in the coming months here. But, we've been a little quiet on this end. Summer presents not much news for us to talk about, but with training camp around the corner, thought it'd be a good opportunity for us to get together and just preview this Vikings offense, a lot of which is kind of the same, maybe interchangeably with the backups. But I thought we could just talk. Myles, you can start us off, actually. But just overall thoughts on the offense as we head into training camp, and then we'll go position by position.
Yeah, I mean, besides you guys being the busiest people I know, like that kind of sums that up. So
Busy.
Obviously heading into training camp this week, the Vikings offense is, I think the one thing that we can be the most excited about is the continuity. I think the one thing that this Vikings offense hasn't been able to have over the last handful of years, not players wise, I'm more talking like coach wise, but continuity. This is the first time since honestly couldn't remember the year, early 2010s maybe,
or
20 something like that, where they've
way
had
back then
the same offensive coordinator, same play caller in back-to-back years. Now I know some of the consistency was still there, like when you went from Stefanski to Kubiak, like there was still consistency, but it was still a different play caller. Here you're going to have the same thing. Yep. And so that only benefits Kirk, that it benefits O'Connell, Wes Phillips, and then the offensive players, because they get to – the verbiage is going to stay the same, and a lot of the continuity they can build off of from last year rather than having to re-implement, they can build off of. And I think that's just really important. So as they head into training camp, the offense will really be able to hit the ground running rather than kind of having to reinstall. They'll get to build. And so I think that's just one thing I'm really excited about. So hopefully that means more consistency and in terms of like production on the field.
Yeah.
And then obviously you add some of the new wrinkles and new weapons that they've brought in. First full off season for TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, the rookie Jordan Addison, first round pick. And then obviously the offensive line, the continuity there as well is still really big and steps. Hopefully you get to see the guards, Ezra Cleveland and Ed Ingram take big steps. And then I think the Vikings arguably have one of, if not the best offensive tackle duo in the league, right up there with, teams like the Eagles and stuff like that. So excited to just see the group as a whole. But I think the one part I'm probably most excited about now, though, is like the depth and the competition. Because I think the one thing that this new regime has been able to do is really fortify depth and bring like legit competition, not just like back end of the roster players, but guys that could probably be contributors on other teams. Like I think Jalen Naylor's a really good fourth, fifth type wide receiver. Obviously, they go get Josh Carter, who's a really good tight end too. Those types of things I think are really important to really building the foundation and keeping the floor of your team higher. And so I'm just excited to see how they roll out.
Ryan, you excited for the same type of things? I saw you just nodding your head the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, he took all the talking points, typical of
my
Myles,
bad.
But really, like I do agree with pretty much
5
everything
minutes
you're
later,
saying, right? Like, yeah, the continuity is going to be really key, and obviously, yes, from an offensive play calling perspective, it's going to be absolutely huge. But yeah, looking at that offensive line, I think the last time we had the same starting 5 offensive linemen was probably mid 2010s. So so to see that continuity, I mean, it is really important for that position group specifically, that those 5 individuals to be in sync with each other. And again, another year, another off season together, I think is going to really help. Hopefully be able to provide Kirk Cousins a little bit more time to throw, and hopefully open up some running lanes for a new starting running back, Alexander Mattison. So you had mentioned pretty much all the same starters. Yeah, I mean, we have 2 new ones potentially if Addison can secure a spot as a starter, which we all expect him to do. And the only other new one is Alexander Mattison, who he's already played at times with these players, right? Like he's obviously spelled Dalvin Cook many times and started for him when he was injured. And then TJ Hawkinson, as you mentioned, half a year of starting availability with us last year, but outside of that, not a full season. So outside of that, you got all the same guys from last year's, starting roster, right? So at least offensive roster. So that should be good. Yeah, I agree.
Hey guys,
so yes. Go ahead.
Can we rewind, touch on Alexander Mattison in the rushing game? Because I think out of the one, and that kind of just brought up something that just like popped in my head, Ryan, just a reminder that like the run game last year was not good for the Vikings offense. They relied heavily on the pass game, which I mean, in an offense where you have Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson and at the time Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne, relying on the pass isn't a bad thing. But when you can't run the ball efficiently at all, it doesn't help keep drives alive. And an offense needs a running game to be efficient. They don't always have to be, they don't have to run more. They just have to be more efficient with the amount of rushes that they do in a game. And so I think that's one thing this like training camp into the preseason, I really think is important for them to get better, because that scheme and just, I don't know fully what the like issue was, because I don't think it was just Dalvin Cook. I think the scheme might have been a problem just because it was a different type of run scheme than what they'd been used to in the outside zone, traditional outside zone that they've been running. But I do wonder like if they can really improve that.
Well, some of the signings too would say that like with the Josh Oliver signing, it would say that they want to run the ball more. But I think one thing we heard consistently in OTAs is they're still not going to force running the ball. Like if the opportunity is there, they're going to do it. But I still think they're going to lean on that pass game more than anything, especially when you have arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL in Kirk Cousins, who showed a lot of trust in Justin Jefferson last year as a passer.
I agree. So, if we want to go to like position groups, right? So
yeah, let's start breaking it down that way.
Yeah.
Do you want to start with quarterback?
Yeah, I was going to start with quarterback. So obviously Kirk Cousins is the mainstay there, right? So as we go into training camp and OTAs, or out of OTAs and into training camp and then the season, obviously what we're going to be really looking for is Jaren Hall, in my opinion, right? Like obviously Kirk Cousins solidified. Nick Mullins, you know what he is. He's going to be a solid backup. But can Jaren Hall go and push for that second spot? I don't know. I haven't seen much about him from the OTA's perspective and much chatter about him. But what we do know about him is he is a toolsy prospect that has the ability to make a lot of the different throws that we would need to make, has the ability to create outside of structure and hopefully improvise and make some plays. Now, Is he there mentally? I have no idea. Right. That's something yet to be determined. But I'm excited to watch him progress through the training camp and then into the preseason games to see, hey, what do we have in this guy? Do we have a developmental prospect that's going to take a couple years to even maybe be a backup? Do we have a backup guy? Do we have somebody who maybe can shock the world and potentially be the heir apparent to Kirk Cousins? I mean, we just don't know, but it'll be exciting to watch.
Forgive me quick because I don't know the specifics of it, but wasn't there a rule passed now where like you can have 3 quarterbacks on game day?
Yeah. So they passed that. Basically, the 49ers in the NFC Championship was the reason they were able to pass that rule. The owners did, but yes. So the teams can dress 3 quarterbacks and then not impact the 46. I think.
Yeah.
So like Jaren Hall will probably be dressed every game, and obviously not play, not be involved in anything. But
you hope not.
Right? Yeah. But like as an emergency,
unless he's a stud.
Right? Unless he's a stud. But no, kind of going off what Ryan said there, though.
If he's a stud, Ryan, I'll buy you any bottle of whiskey you want within reason.
Yeah, I was about to say, you better put parameters on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of really expensive bottles. Happy Van Winkle, here we come.
No. No, but the one thing talking about the quarterbacks, though, is that they only have 3 on the roster. And I think how important that is for Jaren Hall's development is he's going to get a lot of reps in preseason.
A lot.
Like a lot. So Kirk Cousins is obviously going to get all of the QB1 reps during practices, during the inter squad scrimmages with the Titans and the is it the Texans? Who's the other team?
We talked about this the other day and we couldn't figure it out.
I'll pull it up. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know Titans are one of them. Obviously Kirk will get most of the reps in those situations, and then won't play any. We haven't seen starters play in the preseason, so that just means Nick Mullins and Jaren Hall are going to get a lot of reps, and that's good.
Arizona, by the way.
Thank you, Arizona. It's just really good for a guy like Jaren Hall to get all those in-game reps in the preseason, and I obviously you hope he does well. There's going to be growing pains, but I think it'll just be really good for him to kind of get a welcome to the NFL treatment in the preseason. And so I'm excited to see that as well.
Do you think, just sticking on the quarterback part and the fact that there are only 3 guys, do you think they bring somebody in this week to have a 4th guy out there? Because that, while it would be a ton of reps for Jaren Hall, that's a lot of reps on people's arms with only three guys. They've historically had 4 guys out there.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised.
I don't know. With Kirk Cousins being so solidified, though, a lot of those reps I think are going to be going to Mullins and Hall. And again, why not give Hall everything you can throw at him?
Yeah.
Obviously, yes. I mean, especially if there's any sort of tweak or any sort of injury at all, you got to have some guy maybe like that you've already worked out. And I thought we brought a couple guys in over the last couple weeks. Like, I can't remember who specifically, but I thought I remember reading that we brought in a guy, like, not that we signed them, just that we like tried them out type thing.
We always try and connect dots, right, to former like head coaches where they were. We did it with Zimmer and the Bengals, and we've kind of done it with Kevin O'Connell and the Rams. But it wouldn't surprise me this week if they did want like a 4th quarterback to come in, if they went after Bryce Perkins, who's still a free agent and spent a little bit of time with the Rams. I think they overlapped one year. 2021 they would have overlapped. So that could be a young guy that they look to bring in. Or maybe I feel like they just say screw it.
Well, so I guess Jaren Hall doesn't make the practice squad, right? But what they could do is poach somebody from another team and put a quarterback in the practice squad as a 4th quarterback. And like you said, maybe in a week or two when the quarterbacks are starting to get a little tired, they might bring in somebody late. And obviously we wouldn't expect those players to make the team, but a chance to be a practice squad guy is obviously a possibility there.
Feel comfortable about Nick Mullins heading into training camp in another season? It's not Sean Mannion anymore.
If it's not Kirk Cousins, we're screwed with the current, like, at this point, right? So, like, I'm not the highest on Nick Mullins, but I'm not like, oh, man, he's the worst backup quarterback. I think he is kind of what he is.
Maybe he's got a little Case Keenum in him.
I mean, I think I said on the show he was like top 5 backup quarterbacks as I was kind of drunk and stupid there. But
I remember that. Now that you say that.
But no. I mean, he's fine. He's a fine backup. I mean, I'm not going to be excited if he's in the game. Obviously, that means that we're probably going to lose. But He can sling the rock. He can throw. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, he's like, I think over his first 5 starts or whatever in the NFL, he's thrown for like the second or third most yards within those games. But yeah, I'm not expecting much out of him.
He's the backup you like to have because he's a YOLO type guy where he's like he doesn't care if he throws an interception. And I think as a backup, a guy that if he needs to come in and just sling it, that's the type of mentality I want a backup to have as like a non-development backup quarterback, like a Jaron Hall's like a dip. I want him to be different in that scenario than I want a Nick Mullins. But like Nick Mullins gives you what you need from that backup position.
Before we shift groups here, what? And I'm kind of throwing you guys on the spot here, but what do you need to see from Kirk Cousins in training camp? So obviously, like, he's the solidified starter. Myles is already shaking him. He's like, no, just don't need to see anything.
Yeah,
just stay healthy.
Don't get hurt. Yes, exactly.
No. Like, remember last year during training camp how bad we talked about the offense looked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and like heading into the preseason, we're like, oh man, the offense should probably get a few reps. Blah blah blah. They just haven't looked very good. And then they go out and torch the Packers in week 1, and we're like, oh, okay.
like
I just wouldn't. Like Kirk's been in the league for a decade. We know what he is now. Like there's nothing that we need to see in training camp practices that'll change anything.
With his first time with the same head coach and play caller since his time back in Washington, there's nothing that you want to see from him in training camp other than just what he's been.
The impact will come on game days. Like that's really what it is.
And he's going against a defense, and he's going against a defense every day that knows who he is too. Right.
And that does
add. That's a good point. So it doesn't really matter as much. If anything, yes, those inner squad scrimmages or whatever that they have with Tennessee and Arizona, sure, like I want to see a little bit more there, but at the same time, like, take risks. This doesn't matter.
Well,
it literally doesn't matter.
So that's what it is. That's what I was looking for.
Well, and that's what I said last year too. Like, I literally said that last year. Like, I want to see some interceptions, and I think both of you looked at me like, "What the fuck?" But I want to see him.
This episode explicit. Thank you.
Oh, my bad. But like, I want to see him take risk and like make throws, like and take chances on throws that maybe
100%.
You wouldn't make during a game unless you see it in practice and you say, hey, I made this in practice against Byron Murphy, one of the better corners in the league, hopefully. So I'm going to make this play against whomever, right? Like, I'm going to make this attempt because you have Justin Jefferson there.
Well, I think that's the part that people forget, to your point, Ryan, is that the practice is literally that. It's practice. You're trying different things. Like, so a play that you might not ever see run in a game that the Vikings are running in practices on the inter-squad scrimmages because they're trying them out. And so it might not go well. Like, that's not always like on the quarterback. That's not always on the play. Like, there's so many factors that go into practice that people just don't seem to realize. Especially when you get into the 7-on-7s and the team drills, is they're trying new things because they want to see what's going to work in the games or not, and what they want to try in the game. So you might see Kirk not do as well, but that doesn't mean it's like a negative toward Kirk. That could just be what is it or isn't comfortable for him heading into week 1. And the different positions vary in that way. But a lot of times for these practices, guys are trying different things because they want to see if something works or not. It's not always just like a true one-on-one. Every single rep is 100% go. You got to be your best at like it. These guys are professionals, so it's not just that. Like, especially for the proven guys.
All right. Let's move over to let's do running backs and fullbacks. I'm not going to separate those. We alluded to it at the beginning of the show. It's Madison's backfield for all we know. But Myles, you and I have had some conversations just about that room, at least last week, especially when we were at Dalvin Cook's camp. And you think people are too high right now on Dwayne McBride. But let's talk about the group in general.
I did, yeah. Well, I'll get into context there too.
Nope, no context. Everybody roast them.
Well, this is the first time in 15, 16, 17, since before Adrian Peterson that the Vikings haven't really had like a true highly established.
I think you mean before Chester Taylor.
Right. Well, in a way, but like Alexander Madison's kind of that Chester Taylor type. Like I think that's a decent comparison. Like But like the Vikings for so long, they've had Adrian Peterson, and they went from Adrian to Dalvin Cook, and those are two high-end type running backs. And I'm not going to say Madison's no slouch by any means, but he's not those guys. He's not like a guy that has. He's not super fast. He's not going to break one off for 75. He can't score from everywhere on the field. But he's a good established running back, and I think he's gonna get a chance to kind of lead a backfield for the first time in his career, and I think he fits what they want to do. And so it'll be exciting to see a difference in the run game, because for so long the run game was literally the identity of the offense, and so it'll be nice to kind of see that continue shift. But also the depth guys like we talked about. I think Ty Chandler has a chance to position himself to be the backup. Then obviously you have Kenny Nwangu, who I'm not sure what I think about him. I think he's more of a gadget and return specialist more than anything, but hopefully he proves me wrong. And then DeWayne McBride, I'll get into that. I kind of said I think people are hyping him up too much because he was a 7th round pick, and he has a steep hill to climb to like get reps. He really does. Like, he's going to have to contribute in special teams, and he's going to have to show that he can do it on the field as well, and be a pass pro. That's super important for any young running back. Is how are they in pass pro? Because if they can catch on that early, that says a lot to a coach, and that's usually when they get the opportunities more than anything, because the starter is usually the guy in 1st and 2nd down. And so if you want to come in and sprinkle in as a change of pace or just be involved in the rotation, you're going to have to be more than just a runner, I should say, because he's not much of a pass catcher that we know of. And so we'll see if he can kind of catch on in those ways, but he'll get the preseason. He'll get a lot of time in the preseason to prove that.
I think Ty Chandler last year.
CJ Ham too. Can't forget about CJ Ham.
He's a staple. He's fine.
Yeah.
Actually, before I get into Ty Chandler, Ryan, I want to hear from you, but I also want to ask a quick question as I'm sitting here kind of like watching our video feeds. Are you like, do you hold your phone while you record this? It looks like it looks like your arm is like holding your cell phone.
Oh no. Nope, I'm on my computer, laptop,
Okay.
sitting on the back of a.
So that would get pretty tiring.
For the OG happy hour folks, right? So we used to have a producer on here, Dave, and he had always mentioned that it's really smart to be able to have like something soft underneath and kind of around you as you're recording, because it helps catch noise or echoes or whatever. So ever since that, I started sitting on the back, like on my couch, and I just put this computer on the cushion, on the top cushion, the backrest there, and it holds pretty true. So and then I'm around this, but anyway, so you were talking about kind of the backup situation. Obviously, Alexander Madison's going to be the starter there, obviously. So going back to the DeWayne McBride kind of comment, Myles, is I agree. Like, the issue that he's going to have is he's a very similar running back to Alexander Madison. Like, they're very. I mean, Madison's actually a better pass catcher and pass protector, at least at the stage that we know about. But from a running style perspective, they're both kind of downhill, just hopefully can break a tackle. And DeWayne McBride's one of the best in college football at that last year, but not overly elusive, not speed backs by any means. So he does have a lot of uphill battle to climb, because typically when you bring in a secondary running back, you're wanting somebody with as you mentioned earlier, a change of pace. And I think that's what Ty Chandler does provide, is he is a bit more explosive, a little bit more elusive in his run style. So I would say Chandler has a little leg up, but again, you never know. Maybe they just want to go thunder and just bruise with these two guys and CJ Ham leading the way, like, and just let them run downhill. Maybe that's the style that they're looking for this year. Who knows?
What is Myles said that Madison couldn't break a 75-yard touchdown run. You guys want to make a little preseason bet on Madison's longest touchdown run this season?
Oh, it's got to be touchdown. It can't just be his longest run. I guess that does tie into my 75. Yeah. Never mind.
I
mean, we could do normal run.
I don't think he has one longer than like 45.
45, okay.
That's like
touchdown wise.
that's like cap. That's cap.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cap. Touchdown wise, I'd say like 50 or less. Yeah.
I'll take 60. I think he could get a 60-yard touchdown run.
Right. I could use a nice bourbon. Right.
Yeah, say bottle of mid-level.
The bottle of bourbon is not on the table here.
Well, apparently you're giving it to Ryan, but I'm not involved, so you know.
That's a whole player's career versus one play. I'll bet a beer on it. I'll bet a beer on it.
That's fine. I want to know now. I want to know what his longest touchdown is.
Will it even pop up if we quick look?
I'll do it.
I think so. Pro Football Reference should have. Well, his longest run, not necessarily touchdown run, but longest run. He actually did break a big one off, I think, like 2 years ago. Maybe last year. I think it was 2 years
His
ago,
longest run is 48 yards.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that. Look at that. I said 50. I said under 50. Look at that. Right, me and Ryan right in the middle. Like,
yeah. That's perfect.
I'm at 60, so that's what I'm going to go with. I'll make a note here. Maybe we should just have a season-long bet here.
Yeah, we should.
But I'm going to say 60 yards.
If any listeners want to Venmo me money when I win, too, because if they want to bet against me, too.
Myles is less than 50. You got to be more.
Mine's under 50. I said, so 50 or less. So, like, 50.
Yeah, you can't win at, like, 10.
Yeah.
So
technically, you're basically just saying he's going to pop a 60 or more.
60 or more.
And we're basically saying there's no chance.
I'm saying it's 50 or less. Like, you're saying it's 60 or more.
But yes, you're right. Like, you basically, if you two are having this bet, it has to be either Matt, you get it at 60 or higher, but if he doesn't have a 60-yard run or more, then Myles wins.
Yeah.
Right.
Or you can just say it at 50. So you got that's an even number. 50 or less, Myles wins. 50 or more, Matt wins. There you go. Anyway, receivers. Let's talk receivers because I think this is kind of a more of an exciting one.
Hold on. Before we do that, never mind. We'll do it later. Receivers. It's been a little bit since we've done this, so I'm trying to get back the rapport with you three, too.
Oh, it's hard.
All right.
So receivers, yeah, let's kind of see where we're at. So obviously we know what we got in JJ. We need to see Addison on the field. Obviously he's had some injury issues this offseason, and then this speeding thing.
Starting on the pup, which is a good thing, it sounds like. So that's good.
He's not on it.
Well, I mean, they announced the pup stuff today, and that was Andre Carter, and then Chris Reed was on the NFI reserve or non-injured reserve or whatever that's called.
Yeah, Addison was one of the first guys there in his Lambo.
Yeah, he was.
Nice. We know he can drive that pretty fast. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, and people are blowing that to be a bigger issue than I think it really was. But either way, it's decision making, and let's make better decisions. But either way, I'm excited to see him get out there. KJ Osborne, we kind of know. So really, for all intents and purposes of this conversation, it's who are going to be those 3, 4, 5 or 4, 5, 6 guys, right? So Myles earlier mentioned Jalen Naylor. We signed Brandon Powell, who's more of like a gadget guy from the Rams. We have Jalen Reagor still on roster, who's supposed to also be that gadget guy for former first round pick. Kind of disappointed last year. And then we got a couple of guys that we are pretty familiar with the names from training camp last year.
Training camps, yeah. Yeah,
Tristan Jackson, Blake Prohl, Lucky Jackson. And then we got Crockett's boy. Crockett's a friend of the show here. Thayer Thomas out of NC State, who's going to be another one of those guys that's going to be a undrafted free agent receiver out of the slot.
Prototypical.
Yep. So
fits the description.
Yeah, right. So I'm excited about him, though. I was watching some like highlight tapes of the kid, and just shifty and really good route runner. I mean, at least from what we can see. And again, this is NC State ACC competition, so
fast, those types of things, right?
Deceptively, just a kid. Lunch pail, just just grinding his way through the weight room, all of that, right? But yeah, so we have some gym rat, yeah. So we have some good competition for that 4, 5, 6 spot. I mean, I think Naylor's probably gonna nail his spot in there this training camp. But outside of that, I don't have a ton of faith in Rager. I mean, I know he has the draft capital and the trade capital to kind of
Trade capital is irrelevant, I think.
I mean, it should be, but we did give up a 4th-round pick for him, and a 7th or something like that. So, but yeah,
Wouldn't
you gotta.
it be a 5? 4 was like the highest it could be, right?
I thought it was a 4 and a 7. I could be wrong though.
I'm gonna look that up now.
But yeah, so we have this competition in for the backups essentially, and again, it's going to come down to what can you provide on special teams. Which one of these guys is going to be able to be a gunner? Which one of these guys is going to be able to provide punt and or kick return abilities? We know Powell can do that. We know Rager can do that. Naylor, I believe, can. So I don't know about Thayer Thomas. Can he be a punt returner? Who knows? He's shifty enough to be one, but who knows? So. Yeah, that's what I'm excited to see through training camp.
Is it not even a receiver, by the way? Is it someone on the defensive side of the ball returning
Easily
punts?
Could be. 100%.
Which we'll get into that in a different episode, but continue.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. And that's really all I had to say is just like, it's just, we know what we got up top and let's see what we got in that depth because injuries happen and we need people who can be able to come in, know the offense, step in and be able to seamlessly take over one of these spots, whether it's a slot, whether it's the the Z or the X. So,
Myles, before you go, I want to loop in just the tight end group in this discussion as well, similar like how we bunched up the running backs and wide receivers. But when you think about the guys behind TJ Hawkinson and Josh Oliver, that's kind of some training camp battles that I'm looking forward to seeing. Like, it's really versus Nick Muse and Johnny Munt to see who's going to kind of keep that third tight end position, or the guy they just signed today, who I don't know his name.
The long snapper / tight end.
Yeah,
Colin Thompson, I think his name is. Yeah.
There's a few other. I think they have another tight end, but yeah,
Evan
just
Sims. Yeah.
So based on the wide receiver and tight end group, what are you looking for in training camp here?
Well, keeping it to tight ends, I'd be curious to see if they plan on keeping 3 or 4, especially if they're a team that wants to run more 2 tight end sets. We might see them keep 4.
Well, Johnny Munt is still under contract, I think, for another year, correct?
He signed a 2-year deal when he first came, so this would be his last year of the deal.
Okay.
And then, but it was non-guaranteed, so I think at least the second year, I think it was like non-guaranteed or something like that. But then obviously Nick Muse was on the practice squad last year, so it'll be interesting to see how that battle goes for those guys. Johnny Munt knows the offense though, so I wouldn't be surprised if he stuck around. I think he's on like a vetman type deal, so it's not like it would really be a negative to keep him. Knows the offense. Wide receiver wise, to your guys' point, I think bringing in Brandon Powell to kind of compete with Jalen Rager as like that punt return gadget guy is an interesting one, just because Rager's. So they did trade. So as a conditional 4th, that conditional 4th will be a 5th. It'll only turn into a 4th if he has like 40 or more catches or 500 or more yards, and maybe it's.
Do we want to do another bet on this one?
So it's 40 receptions, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns. So he needs
all of them. He has to get all 3.
No, it's any of the 3. Any of the 3. So any of those 3. 40 receptions, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns. And I would say it's probably very, very unlikely, unless somebody gets hurt, for him to hit one of those.
The 5 TDs is the one I'm worried about, actually. Just from like, we saw how Kevin O'Connell used him in the red zone last year a little bit, tried to get him on some jet sweeps.
And it does say 5 touchdowns. So it might not be 5.
I also assume it could be a returning touchdown too.
Yeah, it could be any sort of touchdown, not just a receiving. So that would be, but like the Vikings can maneuver that how they want to. They can play him, and if they don't want, like, and obviously
he's at 4 and he doesn't get a touch again.
Well, I think they'll play the best players. So I don't think they would let a condition be the reason they didn't play him. But I do think it's interesting that they brought in Powell, who's very similar, because I do wonder what the future holds for either one of those guys. Rager's deal is guaranteed, though, so that could kind of give him the leg up. I don't know what Powell's contract looks like. I'm guessing veteran minimum, but yeah, I'm excited to see those guys battle it out, because Powell is a good punt returner as well. And then I'm really excited to see if Jalen Naylor can continue through because in the spring
wanted to talk
with
about
Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. So Jefferson was out most of the spring, and then Addison got hurt very early on. So Naylor and KJ Osborne are kind of the two guys, and everybody was raving about Naylor, and that doesn't always mean a lot. But I think coming into your second year in the league, if you can turn some heads, it can only help. And I think he's the one guy that has a little bit more of a true versatile skill set. That's like a deep threat skill set that I don't think KJ and Addison quite have in the same way. And I think Naylor can stretch the field a little bit better. And so there could be a role for him in that because of that. And I think him being like the fourth guy could be a good thing if he can continue to develop.
Yeah, I think TJ Hawkinson still, and I've said this countless times before, but he really throws off just the whole wide receiver element to me because he is their wide receiver too, in my opinion.
But I think what they did though is they improved that 3-4 spot.
Yeah.
So obviously KJ Osborne and Jordan Addison, both of those guys are really good. I mean, we think Jordan Addison is going to be really good, and I expect him to be. Maybe not right away, but it takes the pressure off him to having to be like a high contributor as early on in his rookie year. Because KJ, I think KJ is a really good player. I do. Yeah. I think KJ is good. I think he's proven that
contract year too.
Contract year. And so I think he's proven that he could be a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 type. Probably closer to 3, but I think he's going to get to show if he can be a wide receiver 2 this year because he's going to get that first crack. So I think they've, like I said earlier, they've improved the floor because they've gotten better at some of those like depth positions and those guys that can really contribute if someone gets hurt, and those types of things can create real competition as well.
So we hardly touched on Addison. We just said we kind of wanted to see him. And I'm going to defer to you, Ryan. I've asked this question with every position group thus far, but what do you want to see from Jordan Addison in training camp?
Stay healthy. I mean, we know the type of player he is, at least what he was coming out of college, right? I mean, he's a player that can get open, create separation quite easily through a phenomenal route running, and quick twitch. So I want to just be able to see him actually get reps, understand the offense, learn the offense, make minimal mistakes in the route running concepts, even if he's not getting the ball. But again, obviously this isn't something we're going to be able to see from like a TV view, but we'll likely be able to get our hands on some all 22 and just kind of watch like, hey, is he generating separation? Is he able to separate? Obviously he's been able to do it in the Pac-10, right? And in the ACC, but can he do it against NFL competition and NFL level corners? So I want to see that. I want to see him just stay healthy and obviously I guess stay out of trouble. I mean, it's a stupid thing to say, but he just had one little minor thing there. But
it's not though. I mean, it's an important thing.
It's a very important thing. I want to see our coaches and our leadership be able to come step in and say, "Hey, you have great opportunity here. Let's stay clean from here on out. Stay healthy from here on out. You have the sky's the limit for the kid. So I just want to see him be able to be successful."
Which week of the season do fans start comparing, because it's going to happen, do fans start comparing Jefferson, Addison, and Osborne to Moss, Carter, and Reed?
I mean, they did it when Addison got drafted. They did it with Thielen last year.
They shouldn't be.
I mean, I think folks just want that trio again, and I don't blame them. I mean, that 98 season was legit. But yeah, it'll be, if Addison shows out early, it'll happen really quickly.
All right. I'll have the meme created just so we can push it as soon as he has his first big game. I'll start doing it. The last group we get to talk about, the best group to talk about, the offensive line, which for the first time in God knows how long.
Well, knock on wood there before you say it.
Yes, there's wood everywhere.
The game hasn't started. Let's chill.
Potentially,
yeah,
the same starting 5 across the offensive line. Obviously, we got our starters: Darisaw, Cleveland, Bradbury, Ingram, and O'Neal. But even the backups are pretty consistent from what we can see. Blake Brandel still here. Chris Reed obviously put on PUP today. Schlottman, Oliudo, and in low. And I think my app isn't loading, but I think there's
and we just signed Bobby Evans.
Yep.
Yes.
I think we signed him late last year, I think.
Oh, that's right. He was on the practice squad real late last year, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. And then
I forgot about that.
We just brought him back, and he's a tackle guard. He can kind of intermingle between those two, but trained as a tackle. He came out of college as a tackle.
Let's work from the inside out here, because I want to get your guys' thoughts quick on Garrett Bradbury. Fans were ready to write him off through his first 4 years here, and rightfully so. He didn't really perform to the level of a first-round draft pick, but the Vikings gave him a contract this offseason to bring him back. And at the end of last season, many fans were just praying he'd get healthy enough so he would come back, because we could feel his presence miss. So he's back. What are your guys' thoughts on the center position? Are you comfortable with Bradbury here in his second season in Kevin O'Connell's scheme?
Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, I mean, for years I've been obviously on the let's move on from Bradbury train. I really want us to draft Creed Humphrey 2 years ago.
Is. 40 minutes in.
Obviously, he's now the best center in football. But Bradbury, I'll give him credit where credit's due. He played well last year. I think that new coaching staff, offensive line coach plus Kevin O'Connell and his scheme, were able to kind of really get the best out of Garrett Bradbury. And yes, to your point, when he wasn't in, I mean, I don't think it was like, oh, the sky's falling. Schlottman actually played relatively well as well in that role. But you could definitely tell that he was missed, especially when Schlottman also went down.
Yeah.
So excited to have him back. Excited to see him in year 2 of this offense again, for the first time in his career, having, again, knock on wood, continuity at both sides of him in Ed Ingram and Ezra Cleveland. Having them there, I think, will also allow him to feel a bit more comfortable and understanding, okay, this guy does this well, this guy does this well, this is where I may need to help or shade over or what have you. And hopefully that continuity really helps him. But yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do this year. He signed a 3-year deal, so he's going to be with us for a couple years at least. And a very team-friendly contract, in my opinion. I thought it was a pretty good deal for us.
Yeah, especially considering what some of the other offensive linemen out there were getting at the time. 100%.
Yeah, I think we got him like $1 million less than, I would say, players that are not even as good as him, or like right at his level, but maybe not even as good as him. So
yeah, and it sounds like he had an offer from the 49ers. Now I don't know what the offer was from them, but he had options. So it's not like the Vikings were the only team trying to.
Probably just didn't want to go against that 49er defensive line every day in practice.
Well, I mean, I guess the money had to have been very similar, because
yeah,
why leave? Like I think the one thing people always think is like to chase, like the money's but then people think people forget, people also if they like where they're at, they don't want to always leave, even if they have
to learn something new.
Yeah, it's and so he gets to come back to something, and if the money's like the same or more, continuity matters for people too.
By the way, before we move on to the guards here, do you guys remember when Kirk Cousins in 2019? I remember this when we were talking about it, but he called out Garrett Bradbury's butt for being too sweaty.
I kind of remember that, yeah.
I do, yeah.
I didn't need to be reminded. Thanks. Thanks, man.
He says it looks like a window after a rainstorm because he sweats so much.
Oh, Kirk.
I kind of like Kirk, especially after that documentary, but whatever. Let's switch to the guards here. We got Ezra Cleveland and Ed Ingram back. Cleveland in a contract year. We probably think he's likely gone after the season, but who knows? And then Ed Ingram, who kind of made strides towards the back end of the year with Oli Udoh is his backup, and Chris Reed is Ezra's backup, but he's on the pup.
Yeah, well, he's on the NFI, so it sounds like he might have gotten hurt or been injured off of. So basically, that means he wasn't injured during any sort of football activity, or he's not ready to play.
Got it. I misread that. Thank you.
For what he got injured from in a non-football in the facility type of situation. So he could have been training at home and they call the NFI because it's a different responsibility than it is if like he got injured at the facility or practicing or whatnot. But yeah, so the guard position is actually the one I'm probably the most worried about. Cleveland's been steadily like meh. I think there's times where he's good and he's just not consistent. You'd like that to hopefully find its stride this year. But at the same time, he's just not a guy that I don't think you need to like build around long term. But we'll see. Like it's one of those situations. Maybe he plays like a Garrett Bradbury did last year. He takes that additional step and is more consistent. And he's someone you want to keep around. Ed Ingram's obviously in a different situation where it's not a contract year, but it's a prove it year because it's that like next step after your rookie year. Like he really needs to take a next step, not just like because it was bad. Like when it was bad last year, it was like worse than the league bad.
It
was
bad.
Yeah, and so like that's like the bar for him needs to be higher than like just being a bad starting guard. He needs to be significantly better than that. And so like that's where it's tough for me. And then obviously we don't know the situation with Chris Reed, if that's like consistent, if he'll be out long, if he won't. But like that backup position at both guard spots does worry me because of the Chris Reed situation, not knowing. Now, if his is very minor, it doesn't matter, whatever. But if it is a little bit more, then I think they need to figure that out quickly because if Ed Ingram needs to be replaced, if someone gets hurt, like they need to find someone with more consistency than anybody they have in the roster. Oli Udoh was not good at guard. He's a good tackle, but he's not a guy you want to play guard.
Yeah.
And Brandel was kind of a do-it-all, but I think he's probably better served as the backup left tackle more than anything. And so but those guys might have to, fall in line in a pinch if they had to. But I just think they could bring in somebody to be a better, more depth if Chris Reed is. It's all just contingent on Chris Reed's situation. But I think he's a solid interior backup in general, though.
You comfortable with that group, Ryan? Also, you've got me looking at 2024 guards already because if Ingram doesn't pan out and Cleveland leaves, then we're SOL.
Yeah,
but I'll let Ryan.
Well, I mean, they got a lot of money. They got a lot of money next year, so they can figure something out.
That's true.
Not overly concerned. Yeah, I mean, again, the fact that you have two guards that are coming back together for a second year together in an offense that's the same, that I'm excited for. Yes, obviously Ed Ingram needs to take a leap, and Ezra Cleveland needs to become more consistent. I think, if I remember correctly, I think he was rated the 8th best guard last year. So, I mean, like, his highs were pretty high, and I think that was mainly in run blocking versus pass protection.
I think so too.
And obviously with guards, we don't ever see or care about their run blocking abilities. It's all about pass protection for all offensive.
Well, and the team as a whole as a running team sucks. So like that's great that he was good, but the rest of the unit sucked, right?
Yeah, it was horrible. Or just our running backs were just not hitting their red holes or whatever it was. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a little less concerned than Myles is, I guess, just because but like yes, if you have an injury there, we don't have a name that we're really excited about, but also what team does, right? Like it's hard enough to find a good starting five as it is. So
does someone surprise us?
Well, real quick,
that's the thing. Like Bobby Evans is coming in, and Oklahoma tried and true, so he can come in and save the day. He can come in and save the day.
Well, nothing. So I should say I'm not like worried. I'm only worried about if Chris Reed is like. If that's like a long-term injury, like that's where I'm.
Well, and then we'll probably bring like a legit somebody in.
And so I'm not like I like the continuity, and it's just more of like it's still questions like can Ed Ingram improve significantly just to be like a below average guard, right? Can Ezra Cleveland just be consistent in pass pro? Like those are the things. Like it's not like I'm like freaking out like oh my god the sky's falling. It's just more of like can they just find consistency and kind of raise that floor.
Sure.
All right, let's shift to the tackles here. Obviously, we alluded to it at the top of the show, but Darrisaw and O'Neal, maybe two of the best tackle tandem in the NFL. But O'Neal's getting older, and he's coming off an Achilles injury. Darrisaw had his fair share of injuries as well, though looks to be, promising to be a fantastic left tackle for the foreseeable future. What are we thinking here as we head into training camp?
Yeah, I feel good about it. Obviously, Myles, you had alluded to it earlier, probably, if not the best, one of the best tackle tandems in the league. And then our depth there is, I think, pretty solid as well. Again, Myles already alluded to this a bit, but Blake Brandel in a pinch had to come in for Darrisaw last year when he had his concussion. I thought played quite well. I mean, considering
Yeah,
as
he
he's a
really did.
backup. Yeah, and then when O'Neal went out, we had Oli Udo come in and step in right away and play really well as well. I've heard Vidarian Lowe has gotten some first team reps just because obviously O'Neal's injured right now and he's recovering. So Vidarian Lowe has gotten some first team reps, so maybe he's kind of taken that next step after being a rookie late round pick out of Illinois. So honestly, I'm as excited as you could be for the tackle position. I mean, you have two studs already, and it seems like we have some very competent backup play available to us. Yeah, that's the position I'm least worried about right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say Lowe is probably the guy that I'm like excited to see this offseason, during camp and preseason, just because I think it sounds like he might have the inside edge of being the backup right tackle, whereas Oli Udo might be shifting into guard, just because I think they seem to like Lowe enough. Yeah. Obviously, he was their draft pick, but they also did bring back Oli Udo on the, what is that? I can't remember what the name of it is. Like the veteran. There's like a veteran deal where he's basically he only counts as the veteran minimum to the cap, but he gets paid like $2 million.
Who is this?
Oli Udo. I can't remember the name of it. I always forget it, but it's like
some sort of like transition tag type thing, something, right?
Not transition, but it's like a veteran it's like an exemption type thing where like they get, because you have to be on the same team for at least 4 years. So it's basically any like if you've been a rookie, if you've been drafted and then you play 4 years, but like I think you have to be on a team for at least 4 or 5 years.
4-year qualifying option.
Thank you. 4-year qualifying option. So you have to be on the team for at least 4 years. That includes practice squad, I think. And then so you count as a veteran minimum charged to the cap, but you get paid more in cash.
And so he gets $2.58 million.
That's what it is.
Paid to him, but he only counts $1.08 million against like salary.
Yeah, which is a huge, like it's like one of those situations where it gives a player an incentive to come back that might not be like a starter, like they're a very depth level type player, but it gives teams and players more flexibility, like because they don't care what their cap hit is, they care about what cash they're getting, and so that's really cool. I think I like that like type of provision just to give guys an opportunity to make more. But he's someone I'm just like curious like what the plan is for him, because if they do like Vidarian Lowe a lot at right tackle, like Oli Udo wasn't very good at right guard when he was a starter in 2021. So what's that situation look like for him? Does he improve? Is he, I don't know, but it'll be an interesting situation to kind of play out. And then obviously we know Brandel's, I think, a pretty solid backup left tackle. He's in a contract year as well. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what the plan there is through the rest of through camp more than anything.
Yeah, I think we're heading into an interesting training camp for the first time in a while, just especially on the offensive side of the ball because there is so much continuity. But I'm excited to see the whole group kind of get those reps again, get out there, hopefully stay healthy. I think that's the key.
Literally the most important thing, health.
Yep. Like we've learned time and time again that preseason is not important, and these guys are athletes who can get ready for week one without, potentially getting hurt in training camp. And I think Kevin O'Connell in his first year as head coach did a really good job at kind of managing that last season. And so hopefully he can do it again. So before we round out the show, after covering the entire offense here, is there anything else you guys have from the offensive side of the ball that you just have to get off your chest?
Justin Jefferson. And that man a blank check.
Yes.
And TJ
Yes.
Hawkinson, but
I was saying, and TJ, like
Yeah,
get them
Blake
both under
yeah, Blake
contract.
should
Let's
for him.
pretty close.
get these young studs locked
Yep.
in, and let's set it and forget it.
100%.
Yeah, I agree, especially because I just got a Justin Jefferson throwback jersey, so I really
great.
I know, that's what I told him.
Getting traded next offseason.
I said that same thing.
Yeah, I do have historically bad luck when it comes to Vikings jerseys. So
didn't you buy Eric Kendricks, and then next year he gets cut?
well, we start with AP, got Adrian Peterson, and then the whole injury and child abuse stuff happened. Got Diggs. Next season he was traded. Got Hunter. His neck got hurt, and he just kind of hasn't been it. Got my father-in-law and my brother Thielen, and then he left. And then I got Kendricks for myself, and he left as well. So we're not doing too good, but I felt like Jefferson was a safe bet.
That's why I only ever buy the legends, Moss, Carter. Just get those guys, and then they're forever.
I wanted to get that Moss throwback though. That one looks fun.
It's not too late.
I know. I might have to
look right behind Ryan. That's badass wood art by Luis up there. He's got the Moss fro.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite. That's my favorite era of Moss. It was the fro Moss.
Well, thank you guys for hopping on to preview the offense as we head into training camp soon.
Will we be going to training camp, Matt?
Yes, at some point. We'll figure it out when, but at some point we'll be out there. Hopefully meet everybody. Come say hi if you see us. We have a defensive preview coming on. We'll figure out the timing of it, but
this week,
maybe later this week. But yeah, a lot more content. Season is back. Football is back. And we're ready to kick this season off. So until next time, everybody, Skol Vikings.